Hi everyone, my name is Heather and I'm the person behind Happy Puppy Truffles. I thought today I'd show you guys how I made the rectangular shaped box that we used for the chocolate box for Valentine's Day. I used a regular square piece of paper but just adjusted things a little bit so that it would work for a rectangular shape as opposed to just a basic square shape. Now the folding and the way that the box is made is exactly the same. It's just you're manipulating the space a little bit to give you what you need to kind of fold it together to make it for a rectangular shape. So there's a little bit of math involved. I don't want to scare you guys all away. I know that's not everybody's favorite subject, but I have this cute little memo pad, and let's say for example I wanted to put it in a box that's almost exactly to this size. What I've got here, and I can show you guys, don't run away scared yet. It's not as scary as it seems. I know so many people hate math. I should just think about making a calculator program for you guys so you can just plug in the info about how big your object is and then you don't have to do the math. But basically what we have here is a simple formula that I just kind of made up that based on the way that you make that traditional box. If you combine the length of your object plus the width and then 4 times the depth so that you can have the parts that fold over to make the edges, then you'll know how big this part of your paper needs to be. Because if you recall, when you make a traditional box fold, you do that with the paper sitting as a diamond and fold all the sides in. So basically you're shooting for having your little box shape right here in the middle. And in this case, we're going to be working towards trying to put something that's like rectangular right in the middle there. So that's the basic formula to get what we know C to be. So when I have my memo paper here and I just measured it to figure out the dimensions I needed, my length was 12.2 centimeters. That just gave me a tiny like 1 or 2 extra millimeters here to kind of work with for folding it up. The width was 8.5 and then my depth was about 2.2. And so when I put that all into the equation and do the math, I get 29.5 centimeters. So I know that that's my value for C. And then if you're familiar with the terrible Pythagorean theorem, you know that when you have the triangle here, you can do a squared plus b squared will tell you that the value of c squared. And we're going to be working backwards because we know c squared. We can just take 29.5 squared. That gives us 870.25. Now that's my number, and basically a and b are the same value, so I can just divide that by 2. And that will give me this number of 435.125. And then that value, because that's a squared value, then I need the square root of that. And the value I get then is 20.8. So A is 20.8 and B is 20.8 because we're making a perfect square sheet of paper. So I know for making the paper fold for this kind of a project, I need to have a piece of paper that's 20.8 by 20.8. Now, the nice thing about doing this is that if you're a die-hard origami fan and you hate cutting anything and you always want to have a pure square when you start things off, this guarantees that you'll have that and you won't need to use any scissors or anything like that to change up stuff. So you do need to cut your paper to 20.8, but then everything after that is pure origami. So I have my paper here, and I happen to have some of this big supersized paper. This is 25 by 25 centimeter paper. And I just got this at the 100 yen store, but I'm just going to go ahead and take a piece of paper out here. It's a piece of purple paper. And of course I want to make sure that I'm working just with the 20.8 dimension that I came up with my math. So if I take for example, a larger ruler here, you could just start off by measuring out one side. So I'll just find where 20.8 is here. And you can either measure on both sides or just measure one. I just usually just do one and then fold over here so that I can get a nice smooth crease right across, and then I can cut that off. And then to make sure that I have a perfect square, you fold your paper here into a big triangle, and you'll have a little bit of the paper left over there on the edge. That should also be what you need to cut off so that you wind up with a perfect square that's 20.8 centimeters. Get rid of my extra paper here. So that's the only part you need the scissors for. I now have the piece of paper that I need to make my box. Now, we're going to need a little bit of a ruler still for this so that we can make sure we get everything folded the right way. But I can go ahead and put my other diagonal crease in my paper here so that I just kind of know where my center is. It'll help make things a little easier. Now, as you recall, we work with things folded from a diamond shape, and basically the box is built around our shape, like so. So I can, remembering my dimensions that I measured, for example, that the length was 12.2, if I take 12.2 and divide it by 2, that gives me 6.1. So I can tell from where I need to put my ruler, and I'm just doing this so I can see a little better. But that's where my center point is, and I can just mark both at 0 and then at 12.2 to give me the dimensions of where I need to make my first crease. So I can go ahead and just start off by giving a little pinch here right on that part that I just marked, and then just keep your center creases lined up when you do this, but this is going to give you the first crease that you need. And then I could do the same thing on this side too. And then just use the creases that you have to make sure everything stays straight. And then I want to go ahead just really quick before I do the other stuff and do my width. And my width was 8.5. So half of 8.5 is going to be 4.25. So I can kind of guesstimate where that is because it's not going to be exact, but I'll try my best to get that pretty close. And then I can go ahead and fold this part in too. And you should be able to keep these lines of creases lined up too when you do this so that you get the shape you need. So we've got the base of our box completed now with both of those creases. Now the other thing I want to do is allow for the depth of everything, and if you recall that was 2.2 centimeters. So I'm just going to start off by marking where both of these are, because I'm going to need two of them. So I'm going to do 2.2 and then do 2.2. And essentially that should, on this long lengthways, it should actually create a crease that runs right even with our sides if you've done it right. Now that doesn't work true for the other part where the width is, but for this one that's the longer dimension is the way that should work out. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this and just fold right on my creases. And if you wanted to, you could fold this in half and do both of these sides at the same time. You'd need to reverse the other side. That's kind of just up to you if you want to do it that way. Or if you're worried about it making it exact and you want to just take your time, you can go ahead and do each side. But you should see this tip should come right to that farthest crease and should hit right here along the sides too. Hopefully, if we've done our math right and cut the paper right, it's where we should be looking at. But we just kind of work our way through. Now this is obviously different than the technique that's used for folding just a regular square box because I'm dealing with different dimensions and everything's not the same. So, you know, it does take a little extra steps, as you know from watching the video on how to make the chocolate box. If you saw that, there's a few extra steps to get everything right. But now I've got what's going to essentially be the sides, and I can fold one up here, fold this down, and you can see how I create the side of my box and this inner flap here. And I can do the same thing here. So you're just reversing that one crease there in the middle. But you can get that kind of marked off, and we've got now the two sides of our box already marked off. Now I'm just going to repeat those steps again of my dimensions and just fold to the 2.2 on this side as well. And this should go to the crease on this side, but you'll have a larger flap. So part of it works out, but the other part is a little different. Because it is rectangular, we're going to have a larger flap in the middle that overlaps a little bit. we can kind of get these things marked. And if you really hate the sight of these markers with the ruler that we've made in the pencil, you don't need to worry though, because they wind up getting hidden by everything when we fold all the flaps in. So you shouldn't need to even worry about seeing those at all. But yeah, we just kind of get those two folded over, and I'll do the same thing on this side too. So this really lets you kind of make a box for any size object that you might have, and you can still kind of control the size of everything by folding it like this. And I can just fold this up and then reverse that one side so that I can get that flap folded in. You could, in theory, even just have folded straight away from that if you wanted without marking it, but it's nice to kind of double check to make sure everything's going good. Now, what I tend to like to do for this just is whichever side has the, if you've got things going long ways here, this is where I'm going to add that little diagonal crease as I allow this to fold up and over. So I've got these sides folded already, and I want to bring this part up. And when I do, I'm going to kind of create a little pinch on the side. And you can see how it kind of just happens naturally too. There's this nice little square, and this part is going to get a nice little diagonal crease in it. So I could just kind of bring everything over. You can have it stand up even on its side. There is the paper already there, so it should just go really nice and smoothly where we get that kind of folded over to create our hinge and that little diagonal crease. And I'm just going to do the same thing on this side too. And hopefully everything shouldn't be too hard to do here. I want to try to keep everything as straight and clean as I can. And then I'll do the same thing on this side too. So you wind up folding that little diagonal crease 4 times, 2 for each side. So we've got those hinges marked off, and then we just lay that part right on top inside to finish things off. And it should pretty much be a pretty clean little fold here into the middle, and then have these flaps on top. If you want to, you can use a bit of glue. It's kind of up to you guys if that's what you'd like to do or not, but you can also just leave. Like that one seems to work a little better if I can get it underneath here. Same thing for this one too. Or, like I said, if you wanted, you could just use a tad bit of glue to kind of keep everything secure. That's just up to you guys, but it should work either way. But that should give you the finished box that you need then, in this rectangular shape, and our little memo pad should just fit nicely in there, and it gives you a nice little container. And if you make another version of this, just giving yourself like 0.5 extra centimeters for the dimensions, you'll get something a little bigger. You could just start with your measurements and go through them all just by adding a little extra. Or you could probably squeeze things in there and make it fit, but it's nice to have something for the lid to be just a tad bit bigger. But that's just one thing you can do to kind of adjust a traditional origami and still use a square piece of paper, keeping it pure, and create a rectangular box instead. So I hope you can find some fun ways to use this in the future, and I'll have lots of great videos coming up in the days to come. Thanks again always so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!